Bhavin, welcome to the Nervous Apes podcast. Good to have you.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be here with you. Appreciate the invite. What an honor.
Yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm curious from you, if you're in an elevator, somebody looks at you and says, "Hey, man, what do you do for a living?" What do you say?
I help people lead and live bigger, healthier, happier lives.
Yeah,
That's the shortest thing I can come up with.
yeah. So this is one thing that I've noticed about you since I've known you is you have this strong desire to serve people, right? So tell me a little bit more about what that looks like. How are you serving people right now?
Yeah, I appreciate you seeing that because there probably was a time where I didn't see it, and it took me a long
Mm,
time to come into alignment with that. Um, how I serve people right now at the moment, I'm wonderfully employed by the Audi International School. It's a private school in Houston, and I'm able to use my counseling degree in a way to help the students. So I'm the counselor for the upper school, but what I get to do that's really exciting for me that I took the job in the first place is I get to bring my years of yoga and meditation into that, and I feel like it's the perfect antidote for what they're dealing with, and has proved to be really effective. So that's the number one way is intervening through mindfulness techniques with the kids, teaching them techniques. Awareness, self-regulation is such a big part of what they need. So I'm getting to help them that way. The other part that I see is community and building community. And in a school, you would think, hey, that should be kind of a given, and it still requires a lot of tending. So building community and creating spaces for us to be seen and heard and belong is really a major part of our health and our well-being. And I get to do that at the school. We do live music and yoga sessions once a month. We do big campus-wide events, and it's really
wow.
cool because I put at the end there a community circle. And we all circle up, and it doesn't take long. It's very chill, but each person gets to say their name and what they're taking from the practice or what they're grateful for today. Just that one little piece makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, that piece of being able to share what
Yeah.
uh, what their experience of that practice was. Is that what you're
Mhm.
talking about?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm curious as far as the counseling side and how you incorporate breathing and meditation into that. What kind of problems are people coming to you with? And how do you select the techniques to help with that problem? And what techniques have you found to be really effective in that regard?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So the number one presenting problem that I see is just anxiety, and that has its manifestation in lots of different ways with these kids. Um, but it just performance anxiety to be more specific, right? They have a really they experience a ton of pressure to get A's, all A's. They have a ton of pressure to get this college placement that's this highly accredited college, Ivy League. That's what they're all shooting for. If you do
Hmm.
the statistics, right, how are they all going to get placed in an Ivy school, but they're all fighting against each other in some sort of sense to get
Sure.
there? So there's a tremendous amount of pressure from their families, from the community, from themselves, just to perform well. So they get into this anxiety loop where they're worried about how they're going to perform in a test. And it manifests in different ways. A lot of them are presenting with attention deficit type symptoms, and anxiety is the number one thing. There are some depression parts in there, but not as much. And the number one thing that I use to help them with is breathing. I teach
Mhm.
them. So what I do, think about short-term counseling. They come in and they're freaking out, or they have some sort of evaluation that they've done, and they're now sent to me for some accommodations. I'll teach them to notice and recognize when they're anxious and when they're feeling the symptoms of anxiety come on, and then how to intervene right then themselves. And the number one thing that works for them and for me is taking a deep breath in through the nose and the slow exhale to regulate that heart rate, get it down back. And just man, you can see it every time it works, and they love it. And they're nervous, right? They're worried about how they're seen and perceived. So I teach them to do it at a desk without anyone even knowing.
Mm.
You can just sit there while the test is being handed out and take a deep breath in, and through the lips, slow exhale. And there's other ones too. You can turn on your hearing and listen for the furthest sound that you can hear. And that gets them out of their head. You're into a sensory experience, and their heart rate, anxiety starts to subside. If you take the tips of your fingers, their index and thumbs, and you rub them together in a way with such attention to detail, you could feel the ridges of your fingerprints. The anxiety
Yeah,
stops.
yeah, I'm doing that
You can do
now.
that. You
That-
can do that under your desk, right? And no one
That's
has
the
to
first time
know.
I've ever heard of that one. Of that.
And so it's all about finding physical ways that we can tap into the senses, our sensory experience, our bodies, right? You can even feel your feet right now. What are your feet touching? They're in
Yep.
your if they're in shoes or they're flat on the floor. It just gets you out of your head. We're trying to interrupt that monkey mind.
Yeah, they have all of the mental chatter going on that is probably on the negative side. And the things that you're sharing with them help them either turn away from that, like outside the body altogether, or to come into the body and find a reliable anchor in the body for them.
Bingo. Exactly right.
I love how you just gave a buffet of options, right? Do you find that tends to work really well? You show them several techniques and then they choose their favorite.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. And usually with those three or four, they find one that they love.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll even go further than that, but I don't even have to. They're like, they respond or ask me a question about one to go deeper into that one. And I'm like, okay, let's grab that one. We're taking it with us. And I talk to them a year later and they're still using it, or they're
yeah.
not in my office anymore because it works.
That feels good, right? When
Yeah.
you share something like that, they're like, man, that really made a huge difference. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm curious. You're working with teenagers. What is the age range you're working with?
14 to 18 is the general range. There could be some deviation on there, but around that.
One thing that I'm noticing with people just in the general population is they seem to have grown tired of hearing the word mindfulness, right? They've just been bombarded with it for the last 15, 20 years, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that brings up a little bit of resistance in a lot of people. Are you noticing any resistance to these techniques as you start to present them to them? And if so, how do you manage that?
Well, yeah, there is a little bit of resistance, but when I say a little bit, I mean out of 100 kids, there'll be one kid who thinks
Ah,
she's smarter than everybody else and has already heard that stuff and doesn't want to hear it, and they need a higher level of care. To be really quite frank with you, they're dealing with some other stuff. So, in general, the population there is saying, "Hey, I'm a kid. You're a teacher. You're an adult. I'm coming to you for help. What do you
mm,
got?"
mm-hmm,
And then if I don't label it or put it into a box, I
mm,
can get further with it.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, in
so
general,
that's a good point that maybe sometimes not using the word mindfulness or using the word breathing techniques. What are some other ways of phrasing it that you have found to be helpful?
I like to kind of keep it simple and say, hey, I've been teaching people to use tools. These are my tools. I have a
Tools.
tool bag. Yeah. What do you need today? What do you got? You want to try this tool out? And then if you like that one, I got another one for you next week. And they'll be like, yeah, what do you got, man? Or I'm good. You know?
Yeah, love that. And everything that you're talking about works for students, but it also works for adults. Just like the things that you were just talking about in terms of, you know, most people are very self-conscious about you're going to give me a breathing practice, and then I have to breathe in through my nose and then breathe out my mouth, and everyone's going to see me doing that, and then they become self-conscious about that particular technique, right? I like to teach the physiological psi a lot that comes out of Stanford, a lab in Stanford, which you may be familiar with, where it's a double inhale, slow exhale. And it's usually taught through inhale through the nose, double inhale through the nose, and then slow exhale through the mouth. And so I show that, have people practice it, and then have to tell them, hey, look, you can generalize this into everyday life all day long. You can be having a heated conversation with somebody, and you can do that double inhale, slow exhale through the nose. You can make it so subtle that no one sees it, but it has a profound impact on your system and your ability to be skillful in that moment, in that conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people have a lot of anxiety with how they're perceived, and
Hmm.
especially teenagers. That's
Yes,
where
for
they are
sure.
neurodevelopmentally. They're looking to find place and belonging in the totem pole, and they're trying to socially climb. So
Hmm.
they don't care about performance. They don't care about schoolwork. So us to have, they're really concerned about that right now developmentally. So if we teach them how to do things under the radar, we have better success with it, straight up.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
yeah, like you said, I do work with the adults at school as well. Lots of
Oh,
faculty and
cool.
staff come sit with me, and that's kind of unique to my position. I think no one before that has done that, but I have an open door, open booking policy to whoever wants to come sit with me can. And I have a lot of teachers who have reputations for being really difficult or challenging, finally have a space to process and get some reflection. And it's been working. It helps the whole system, we find.
Mhm. So tell me more about this idea of combining yoga movement with breathing and meditation. How did you come to the conclusion, essentially, if you're doing it, you have a reason for doing it. And it's more consistent with the old yogis, right? One thing I've noticed, I've got like 10 certifications in breathing and meditation. And I did that for a specific reason. It just kind of happened incidentally. I didn't seek out to do that. I did a couple, and then I noticed that, you do two or three, and there, each of the organizations that certify you, they come at, say, meditation or breathing from their own perspective. And then you go do another certification, and they have a completely different perspective. And what I started to notice is all of those perspectives have merit. There's value in all of them, right? And so I just kept going, got more and more, just because to me it felt like it made me a more well-rounded coach and teacher when it came to those two topics. But one of the things that I noticed is if you go do a meditation certification, there's almost no discussion about breathing. In fact, usually the only aspect of it that involves breathing at all is the initial instruction from your meditation coach at the beginning of the meditation when they say take 5 deep breaths, right? And that's it. That tends to be the extent of it. And most people don't understand the way you take those breaths, maybe activating your nervous system or activating the parasympathetic nervous system and calming you down. And it's my impression that what happens for a lot of people, if they're breathing in a way that is aberrant and they take 5 deep breaths that activate their nervous system when their goal is rest and relaxation. That's why they came to meditation to begin with. What ends up happening is their brain is activated and they feel like they're terrible at meditating. Also, because they have this idea that the goal of meditation is to clear their mind, which is probably the um, most common myth around meditation, right? So I noticed that the old yogis, their focus was on movement first, breathing second, meditation third, because the movement in the breathing prepared the mind for the meditation, and it allows you to get more out of your meditation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the it goes back to the ancient text that yoga was handed down from, the eight limbs of yoga, and in the Patanjali goes through the sutras of yoga, right? Which is an ancient text that before it was even written, it was handed down by song. This is
Mm,
how old it is, right? And in the eight limbs of yoga, there's eight parts of yoga, and the first is meditation, then, like you said, movement. Then it's all about preparing the body for stillness so we can sit in a seat and
hmm.
meditate. So the movement came before the sitting and the meditation.
Hmm.
In the modern lineage, which I come from, the modern lineage of yoga, we match the breath and the movement to get this really effective combo that worked in an hour class.
Hmm.
You reach states of samadhi and nirvana, Vatsavasana, through focusing and channeling the powerful mind into focus on the tip of your middle finger as you stretch out, right? Spread your toes and press into the feet. Feel your heels ground, connect to the earth. it just works. The mind is ready to be channeled. It's so powerful, right? But it's just running these monkey mind thoughts. But if we can channel it, redirect it, we can get some results pretty quick.
And the physical movement, it plays a huge role in that, right? And
Mhm.
unfortunately, in America in particular, it may be the same around the world. I don't know. We have siloed each of those skills, right? So you could go to a yoga class, for example, these days, and get little elements of each of those, but not a real emphasis, right? There's a difference between getting it incidentally versus having a really structured program where we're going to do some movement and then we're going to have some good pranayama practice. And there's breathing associated with this as well. But then there's specific pranayama practice, and then you have your meditation after that. What I found is that when I do that for myself and I teach that to my students, they almost always report my meditation was just so much better, right? Is that your experience?
1000%. Yeah, that's absolutely. It's like the formula that just works. It's almost foolproof. I hardly can think of any examples of it not being the case, unless there was some sort of injury involved or some sort of other um, contradiction that was coming up. But yeah, it's a powerful tool. Have you experienced Kundalini yoga yet?
I've never done Kundalini yoga,
I,
not yet.
I'd love to petition to your curious side that I know so well, to check out Jai Dev, Jaidev. He has a Kundalini program, and you can do it remotely. It's called the Life Force Academy.
Okay.
I mean, you could even just survey his content that he has pumped out on Facebook and Instagram and just see if his vibe resonates with you. But I have a really good feeling you would like it. That to me is my next evolution of where I'm headed in my yoga practice. It's
Cool.
it's it's the most powerful. It's so beautiful.
Uh,
Um, yeah.
so, what practices, as far as meditation and breathing right now, are really speaking to you and resonating with you as far as your personal life is concerned?
I am using intentional breath and breathing throughout my day.
Mm,
And I'm meditating a minimum of 3 times a day now,
mhm.
consistently.
Tell me what that looks like. So, are those formal meditations for a specific period of time, or are you talking about just throughout the day, you are throwing in mindful moments?
A
Um,
little bit of both, a
is that
combination. Yeah, it's something that's fluid, that's able to meet my day. I'm trying to be equanimous with my day. So my days might be different in some regard with family life and different obligations. So I can't always say it has to be the same thing. But if you'd like, I can go through my typical routine if
I'd
that's
love to hear
helpful.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I sit up out of bed and I'm in that liminal state and I can feel the drowsiness still on my eyes, I go sit at what I call my altar, which is east facing, and I'll pray, meditate, breathe, and sit there before I do anything else. That's my number one rule for each day. I start my day that way. And
Before you continue, if you don't mind, I hate to stop you.
yeah,
Can you explain to the listeners why you're east facing?
that's where the sun's rising. So I'm watching
Yeah.
the sun come up over
Yep.
the horizon, and catching that morning light and allowing that morning light to regulate my circadian rhythms and kind of balance myself that way. So that's really important in Eastern philosophy, and specifically in Hinduism. The Eastern facing is the direction that you want to face in the morning and do your sun salutations for the most power, for the most alignment. So
Beautiful.
I'm bringing little bits of that in. Yeah.
Are you doing this outside or are you doing this inside?
This will be inside.
Okay.
I'll wake up and then go right out to my landing from it's on my second floor, same floor as my bedroom, and that's where it is. So it's perfect. I'll do that. Then the next thing I do, I'll walk downstairs, and we got a new red light for Christmas this year. So I'm sitting in front of the red light and I'm journaling, which is another form of meditation, mindfulness for me. If you're familiar with the Artist Way, it's a book to check out, or
Okay.
a, a practice. They talk about the morning pages, and it's this practice of just filling a page with words
Hmm.
and allowing it. Imagine the way that a trickle of water will will be the root of a river, right? It just starts to form through the sand. I'm doing that from thought. Thought is coming into my mind and it's going through my body and it's coming onto the paper and it becomes a flow. And it's this beautiful river that has now been established after many years of consistent writing in the morning, just morning pages. When I go to write, I don't have a direction or a theme or anything. I don't I surrender and allow whatever needs to come down. And it's usually beautiful. It's perfect. It is what it needs to be.
So it's kind of a free association, or it is what happens is you it kind of starts open and then it kind of funnels down and then you land on a topic, or does it
I
vary?
th- it varies. Sometimes it varies. It's not consistent. The unique thing is by the time I grab the pen and I'm positioned to write, there's no pause. It just happens right then and there. It's almost seamless. It's beautiful. That's what I love about that. And I recommend that practice to many people. It helps get some thoughts out of the head. It helps creativity flow through you. For me, I've used it as a way to channel affirmations and create this garden in my brain that's good for the rest of the day. Does that
Mm.
make sense? And I'm kind of
Yeah.
selectively affirmations that I'd like to have happen. I just kind of they're kind of sprinkled and peppered throughout my writing.
So at some point it's kind of turning into kind of a intention setting for the day.
Yes, exactly. That's
So it
one
sounds
of
like
my
you
goals.
probably get rid of all the garbage potentially in there when you wake up, right? And then at some point you are setting the intention of, hey, here's some affirmations for life, for me, for my
Hmm.
family, and then
Hmm.
this is how I want to move forward. Once I stand up out of this chair or get off this cushion, this is who I want to be moving to the next moment.
Exactly. Yeah. One of my teachers calls it pre-paving. You're pre-paving your day.
I like that.
Uh, it's another one where she says like you're choosing the disc for the day, like the CD. Or this is what I want. This is the vibe that I want. And I'm choosing it versus being subject to whatever the hell is out there. Right? You're bouncing around and creating by default, or you create by intention. You get to choose. So I see this as that practice. So if you're following me, I wake up, I do the meditation and prayer part, but then I go into the writing part. So that's the first part. Then I get my kid ready and he goes to school. I get myself to school. And then the first moment I have at school, I'll do another meditation. Now that could be at the moment I get in, I get myself set up and then I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for a meeting or I don't have a meeting yet. So I'm going to meditate now.
What is the
Again,
goal of that meditation? I'm sorry to keep interrupting you.
yeah, no, it's fine. It's
I want
fine.
to tease
It's
this
for
apart a little bit.
me, yeah, for me, it's to strengthen my nervous system being regulated
Mm.
really at this point to be grounded and calm and keep myself at a really even meditative state throughout the day because that's whenever I find that I have the best results. It's almost like if wasn't doing that, then I find that I'm more magnetized to stress and stress sticks to me
Mm.
easier, if that makes any sense. And in that environment, it can be very stressful to some people.
Sure.
In fact, I added this practice in not that long ago as a response to the stress that I was feeling coming to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I need to meditate some more.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I
that's
love
what I
it.
did. So now I'm doing that the first chance that I get. And sometimes that's a little bit later in the day, but when I find that I have a moment, which is 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, I have a break in between something instead of occupying and chasing or doing something else, I'll just say, wait a second, this is it. Let me do this. Boom.
So how long is that meditation normally? And is it a particular meditation that you have found to be
what I
most
what
effective?
what I've been doing right now, and I'm open to it changing, is I'll grab a guided meditation from Spotify from a channel that I follow, I subscribe to or whatever, and I'll play a minimum of 5 minutes. If I have 15 minutes, I'll do 15. And then so that's a consistent one that I've been doing, and I've been really liking it, and it's been working. It really has. People might say, "Hey, how are you dealing with all this stress?" I'm like, I added more meditation,
Yeah, exactly. It's the
and
only
it
way.
worked. It's working.
Yeah.
It's strange. I think for people hearing this that don't meditate, the story I have is that they don't believe that that works. They're like, that's not going to work for me. I just don't see how that could work. Like, what are you talking about? Do you find that?
I think for a lot of people, that's the case. They're afraid it's not going to work for them. But I think for most people, it comes down to they feel like in order for it to work for them, they have to set aside what to them is too much time, right? What is that? What is that? I don't know who it came from. They're like, if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, then you need to meditate for an hour,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's old. That goes way back.
Well, this comes to, I think, from a lot of the teachings and even some of the research indicates that, you need to, what they'll prescribe is that 12 minutes per sitting, right? That's the sweet
Mhm.
spot for whatever
Mm,
reason in the
okay.
research, right? But I think what's happened is that has made people underestimate the power of micro moments of meditation throughout the day. One of the things that I harp on this all the time, it was a game changer for me. My students have heard it ad nauseum. They're probably tired of hearing it, but I really love the idea that formal practice is important. I think everybody should engage in formal practice, 10 minutes or more as often as you can, right? But that's not the end all be all. I don't know about you, but when I first started meditating, I was 18 years old. Didn't have apps back then to assist us, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and I didn't have the money to be able to go find a coach. I was reading books, Joseph Goldstein, Sharon
Yeah.
Salzberg, right? Jack Cornfield, and
Yeah.
I was just fumbling around trying to figure out what was going to work for me, right? I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
trying. I was trying to be less of an asshole. I was trying to live a better life. But what I noticed was that the moment I got off the cushion and walked through the door into life, all of that was gone, right? I didn't have a clear method of generalizing what I was learning on the cushion into everyday life. And eventually I found a coach that was able to show me how to do that. And it's simple things like opening and closing a door. How many times a day do we walk through it,
Yeah.
right? And that isn't probably 100, 1,000 sometimes, depending on the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And just taking that moment, you don't have to even slow down. I think it was Joseph Goldstein that said that mindfulness is not a speed, right? Sometimes it's great to slow down, but sometimes you can't. Can you walk from point A to point that door, but go through the door mindfully? Take that moment to check in with the nervous system and see if you're overactivated, overly sympathetic. Take that moment to take that breath, right? That 1-2 breath or a physiological sigh. And then people don't realize that you can actually go from point A to point B and you can focus on the muscles that are necessary to achieve the task at hand, which is walking, moving somewhere. But you can relax all the other muscles not necessary to do that. And there's great power in that. And that requires a lot of mindfulness. And what happens is you get momentum in your overall practice because of the small moments throughout the day. And it sounds like that's what you're alluding to.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely doing that, and it's working for me. And experientially, I'm teaching it too, from that space of, hey, this is working for me. I know that it'll work for you. I think that's the thing that you hit on. I think a lot of people also suffer from. I'm learning this stuff in a class or on the cushion. How do I take it to my life?
Yeah.
And the answer is in the question. You literally take parts of it and you put it in your life.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. There's no.
I don't know if you're familiar with Shinzen Young. He was the founder of Unified Mindfulness. And one of the things that he says that I really love is subtle is significant, right? And I generalize that idea to uh, 10 seconds of mindfulness 1,000 times a day
Mhm.
turns into something very significant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really want to get rid of this or adjust this idea that I can't learn mindfulness. I'm not doing mindfulness unless I sit on a cushion or a chair and I do it for 10 minutes or an hour. Again, I think everybody should try that. And if it speaks to you, do that, but also take it into everyday life and don't underestimate power, cumulative power of 5, 10, 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah, I love that. It's something that I've experienced in my work and teaching as well. Is people ask me, what's it like for you? You've been teaching this for so long. You've been practicing for so long, and I think the a humble way, if you can hear this humbly, is like I'm a walking meditation.
Yeah.
When I'm washing the dishes, I'm feeling the water, bro. Right? When I'm showering, you become a meditation. And I think I
Mhm.
would love to believe that that's what life is about, is coming into harmony with this and feeling the senses that we have and the nature all around us at all times.
Mm.
Some life begins to get good at this point.
It does. What you just said gave me chills because it resonates with me so much. And life gets better in a way that you can't, in the current moment, even imagine, right? Once you start doing the things that you're talking about, being more mindful in everything that you're doing, even the things that you don't particularly enjoy doing, it there's still something pleasant about washing the dishes. There's something in there that has a flavor of pleasantness that makes washing the dishes more interesting, more fun, and less dreadful, right? And that
Yeah.
applies to anything and everything.
I find that to be true. I find it to be the prescription for the ailments. If you are impatient, you hate waiting in line, think about what you're waiting. You should be think now. Let's get into gratitude, right? I'm grateful to be waiting in a line and have this cart of things to be checked out, and I had the money to pay it. I'm grateful for this beautiful store that has got all these goods together so that I mean, it gets easy once you get the momentum going. Getting people to be a little bit patient and do the work, right? This instant gratification world is our biggest enemy in this case, but we just have to be persistent and consistent.
Yeah. Well, I love what you mentioned about the line too, right? Sitting there frustrated that the woman in the front talking to the cashier is talking too much while you're five people back. It's not going to make the line go any faster. It's a
Oh,
great
it
opportunity.
doesn't.
It never
Yeah.
does. It never has in my life. And if you do try to do anything about it, there's a good chance you're going to have to do mindfulness in jail, right? So
Yeah.
why don't we just do it now in line? And it's almost as if we have this attitude. It's like taking you take the poison and hope that it kills the other person. That's all you're doing in that line when you're standing there completely frustrated. It's a great opportunity to just drop into the body, feel that frustration. That's perfectly fine. And then I love this attitude that no emotions are bad. Frustration is good. It's a signal, though. It's an indicator. Okay, something's not living up to my expectations in this moment. That line is not moving as fast as I would like. Fine. Okay, we've acknowledged that. We don't need to stay there, right? So now, what can we drop into to reduce the frustration associated with that, so that it's not having an impact on our body? It literally kills us over the course of time. They've got really good data now. Type A personalities and the hostility associated with literally kills them earlier than the rest of the population. And so let's just take that moment to drop into the body. Once the nervous system is activated, let's see if we can start to bring that down a little bit. And what would the world be like if we all figured that out in kindergarten? Because the things you're teaching at Adi ended up generalizing to all schools. And kids started learning that at kindergarten. What would happen to the United States, to the world, if that occurred, right? It'd be so incredible.
Yeah. I mean, we might have a story of peace, right? Peace on earth for the first time, right? No wars, no conflicts, seeded from compassion and patience and love. Well, my belief is that in order to get there, we have to, from local to global, local meaning me. So if I can't be kind, compassionate, and loving with myself, my loved one, my son, my partner, my neighbor, the lady in line, how the hell can I expect myself to be patient with the neighboring country or someone else who's fighting for resources or needing resources? So
Yeah.
I believe that this is the formula to that utopian idea, from local to global. And so that's why I also believe that it's so important. The thing that I find that is helpful, unfortunately, is when someone has a health scare, they wake up in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they get the doctor's report, they get the physical symptom that, hey, something's wrong in your body, you have chronic sickness, and then they're like, oh, what do I have to do? What happened? What do I need to change? What? then they start getting a little bit more motivated to slowing down, to reducing the stress in their life. Unfortunately, it seems to be that way in our culture, at least in America. Have you
Probably on,
experienced that?
yeah, probably on every level. I'm not a religious person, but I hear people talk about who only pray when life gets difficult, right? Um, if life gets difficult and you start breathing in meditation in that moment, it can be helpful. But I really want to encourage people that if you meditate and engage in breathing practice when life is good, then it's easier to manage those challenges that show up later because you have a momentum of practice. You have a buffet of options that you choose from that you know work from experience. Since COVID, my life has been more challenging. I'm in situations right now that I never thought I would. And it's continued for 6 years now. And I have no idea where I would be right now if I didn't have these practices, right? In particular, breathing and meditation, but also the movement, right? Krav Maga, and I do yoga, do what I can to move as much as possible every day. But in particular, the breathing and meditation, if I didn't have those, um, I wouldn't be managing near as well as I am right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's a
Yeah.
lot of people.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I couldn't imagine my life without it, and nor do I want to, really.
No, no. At this point, I'm completely hooked, and it's going to be a practice that I do till the day I die. And one of my favorite things in the world right now in teaching other people is I have students who were quite frankly the last person that I ever thought would engage in breathing and meditation practice. And if you ask them if they ever thought they would, it'd be like 5 years ago, if you said, you asked me to do a breathing and meditation class, there's no way I would. And one person in particular, I have two people in the last week that have had parents pass away, elderly parents pass away. And I received a message from one of them. um, he sent me his screenshot of all the meditations he did as he was managing the situation with a family member while he was on the airplane, so that he was as skilled a human as he could possibly be. Pretty much his whole flight is one meditation after the other.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
It
huge. That's
works.
something
It,
to celebrate, right? That's amazing.
yeah. That I love that. I love that story.
One
Yeah, I
thing
mean,
that
I
you,
think,
oh, go ahead.
go,
I didn't
go,
mean to
no,
cut you
no,
off.
please, no, please go ahead.
You mentioned self-compassion
Mm,
recently. In my experience, um, I'll give you the long, the short story here. Uh, when I first heard loving kindness meditation, okay, I was like, sappy, not doing that. Don't want any part of that. Uh, Type A personality, right? That's going to make me lose my edge. That's going to make me a doormat. I don't want to be any of those things, right? And there was a psychologist on the scene at the time who was always saying, that which you most need to find, found where you least want to look, right? And that was just so powerful to me.
mm,
And he was saying that at the time that I was experiencing this resistance to loving kindness meditation, right? And so I was sitting with myself. I was like, that gummit, he's right. And maybe I should explore what would happen if I face this resistance that I'm experiencing to this meditation, forget the name, and do it anyway, right? And I did it for 90 days straight. I was like, just commit, just do it, see what
yeah.
happens. It was an
Yeah.
experiment.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, and this is not an exaggeration, before I did this meditation for 90 days, the way I berated myself all day long, if I talked to you in the same way, it would be considered verbal assault. It was horrible. And I
Yeah.
didn't know how horrible it was until it was lifted. And
Right.
it was probably 90% of my mental chatter, self-directed mental chatter, was abusive. And after just 90 days of doing that meditation, that went away almost entirely. It's rare that I say something harsh to myself at this point. what I didn't know, what I didn't realize, well, first and foremost, I'll address the myths, all the list of myths that I said that are now I know are myths. First and foremost, if you're a type A personality and you engage in loving kindness meditation, it will not make you lose your edge. It'll make you better at everything. At least that was my experience, right?
Hmm.
Um, I also didn't recognize how much the way I was talking to myself internally drained my emotional battery to the point that it was coloring the way I interacted with
Hmm.
until it was gone. And then my interactions with other people changed in dramatic ways.
Hmm.
I was able to be more compassionate with other people, not just myself.
Right.
Um, I'm pointing that out to say that to me, self compassion comes first. If you can manage to get the self compassion, then it's so much easier to have compassion for other people. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you can't be compassionate toward other people, but berate yourself at the same time. But I think even in those cases, those people would be surprised at how much more compassionate they could be to other people if they weren't berating themselves in their head all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember us talking about this over the years, and it's definitely been my experience too. My social battery is very different when I'm more compassionate to myself and others. My capacity to show up for others and be with others is a direct correlation from my ability to be with myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, when people talk about wanting to have a good relationship for their partner, be a good wife or husband, how good are you to yourself first? Right. That'll
Yes.
give us a cue into that. Then you can stack that to being an employee or a leader or director or manager, and so
Well,
on and so forth.
it's kind of cliche, right? The idea that if you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask drop, you put it on yourself first and then everybody else. But there's some truth in it.
It's funny you bring that analogy up because I use that analogy to my beginner students
Mm.
every single time. I'm personally like I'm almost tired of hearing it myself come out of my own mouth because I use it so often, but it's an
Yeah.
analogy that works.
Yeah.
What does the the stewardess say in case of a pressure drop? These masks will drop down. Please put your mask on first instead of putting your neighbor's on. Why does she say that? It's always funny to see what their reactions are, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Or what their responses are, because then they'll start thinking about it. Like, well, I don't know. They'll say something random. What good are you if you're choking and you can't breathe? Get into alignment first, my friend, and then your work becomes effortless and easy. And that's a metaphor that we're going to work on to build some stuff for you. It's like, hey, let's get this together. What brings you into alignment? That'll
yeah.
be a conversation I have, and I'll get to kind of suss out their hobbies, interests, and passions, and build from there.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Heart Math Institute?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I absolutely love their work. I recommend their devices all the time, but I would say their heart-centered practice is one of the most impactful practices for me in terms of recentering and getting myself into a state, not only physically but mentally, to be able to move to the next moment and be
Mm,
skillful. Next
mhm,
person I'm interfacing with, especially if something just happened. I had a rough conversation or just life happened, unexpected things occurred, and so I'm feeling frustration in the body. It's that it's the combination of the balanced breathing, slowing the down about 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and a sense of gratitude and appreciation. It's just so incredible how powerful that is. And I wanted to ask, in terms of self-compassion, you mentioned gratitude earlier. So you're talking about heart-centered practices. What are some formal heart-centered practices that have resonated and impactful to you?
mm. The ability to sit with myself that has got gained in meditation has probably been the biggest one. That reflection time that you
Mm,
have. Some faiths or practices might call it you're having a conversation with God. Whatever you want to label it as. It's for me. It's this ability to sit with myself and be real with myself. Um,
so
if
is
I
that
don't even
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if I don't even give myself the opportunity to sit with myself, how can I become compassionate and forgive myself? I'm not. before I was realizing that I wasn't even giving myself the chance,
Mm,
much less doing the stuff. So just coming into a space where I can sit, like, you and I need to have this conversation. We're sitting here together, we schedule time and we're being together and we're being present. The conversation wouldn't have happened if we didn't sit here together. So it's kind of the same thing. I need to sit with myself first and we can reflect and talk and be real. Be like, you know what? I did that. I did that pretty poorly right there. I need to acknowledge that, take
yeah.
ownership on that, and choose again, given the opportunity, God willing, that I can make a better choice next time. Self improvement in a sit,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Is there a
that's
particular format that you use when you do that, or do you sit and address the nervous system and then be open to whatever comes? Or is it sometimes, hey, uh, this just happened and I really need to sit with myself on this and kind of have open awareness and see, try to get clarity on this situation? Or does it just vary a lot?
it does vary. I think over time it has varied. There's not something consistent that I can say right now. It's not until recently that through talking to a good friend, we were both expressing the like as a male, we have feelings. And I think
Mhm.
that's so simple and stupid to say, but it's like needed. I think that we override our feelings as men in our culture a lot, and so I consider myself an empath. I have a special ability to feel vibes and feel. So there are times where I'm feeling things in my body that I had never felt before, nor do I have words for. And then you have someone over here that's asking me for a conversation right now. And it's just like, hey, wait a second. What I need is some time to process and feel these, reflect, and kind of articulate something, put some language to it before I can have a conversation. I'm feeling things that I haven't felt before right now. Can you understand that? Can you give me some space for that? So yeah, having that sort of emotional awareness and intelligence, I think is something that I'm still growing towards. The other part of it is I feel like maybe there's skills and techniques that I've maybe taken for granted learning in grad school to be a counselor, to listen, to hold space for others. I maybe started using them on myself.
Mm. Do
So
you do you think that's a necessary sequence of events? You have to do it, hold for others first, and then learn to hold for yourself, and then shift that again back to others so that you're more skilled than you were before, even with others? Or does it have to go the other way? You're going to be,
I,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that sequence is necessary. That was a familiar pattern that I noticed in mine. If I were to be in a professor in a counseling program, I would really double down on this ability to sit with yourself. We had this technique that I remember really vividly. It's been a long time, but it's called the empty chair technique. And we would project and reflect to an empty chair as part
Mm,
of our training. And I don't remember the details of it. It might be worth looking up, but it was cool. Yeah, I would definitely, just to summarize, I would say that you need to be able to sit with yourself. The level I saw a meme the other day, it's like the depth that you're able to go with yourself is the depth that you're able to go with others. Are you being real with others? Are you being real with yourself?
yeah, I agree. And maybe the way I described it, it's not an either or, and it's not necessarily a sequential thing. It's a transactional thing in the sense that as you're developing that ability to be with others, you can at the same time develop the ability to be yourself, and they both influence each other.
Yeah, I love that. I'm thinking about my yoga training, and one of the biggest things that I learned through teaching yoga is that yoga is not about teaching a class in front of others. Yoga and being a good yoga teacher is your ability to listen. And oftentimes you're not listening to words, right? So you can take that where you want. The other one that I'm thinking about is it just slipped my mind. Let's see. It's right here. Hold on.
Yeah, take
It'll
your time.
probably come back. Gosh, it just went.
That's
It'll
stuff
float
always
back.
comes back at 3 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning for me for some reason.
I'll call you back.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Now, wait till 6 a.m., please, not 3. Well, I'll bring up something that is still along these lines, and maybe it will bring that back up in your mind. Um, I wrote down as we were talking about that, um, this idea of an inner compassionate coach, right? So
Mhm.
it sounds, when you say learn to be with yourself, right? And I love what you said about the emotional landscape of men. It sounds, we're so parallel right now in terms of the direction that we're going and our practices and the way that we're teaching people. Because when I turned 40, um, and I'm 49 now, I it was the first time in my life that I ever really considered death, like being old, dying from old age, right? I did a lot of things when I was young that I could have died, right? So death was in the face all the time. But at 40 years old, like the day of, there was a huge shift in my mindset where I was starting to think about the future in a way that I never had before. And I was reflecting on the past and really being honest with myself about all the ways that I was not as skillful a human being as I wanted.
Yeah.
And what I recognized that was holding me back, probably more than anything, was this really restricted palette of emotion that I would allow myself to feel. And the only emotion that I would really allow was anger. And I find this in so many men, right? And I think this is what you were alluding to, that their the breadth of their emotional experience, right? The landscape of their emotional experience is very limited. And I made a decision that I'm not going to live by the standards put forth by society in terms of what men, for example, the comedian Bill Burr, he has great social commentary on this, right? And this is a great example. It's Halloween time. His girlfriend is super excited. She's like, please, let's go get some Halloween stuff. And so they walk into the store together, and she's excited and giddy, and he's just really stoic. And inside, he's brewing. He's looking at her going, I wish I could be as excited as she is, but as a man, I cannot. And he's like, I'd like to just punch all of those pumpkins, right? Because he's so angry about it. He gets frustrated about not being able to say a puppy's cute, all this stuff, right? So, whether it's men or women, society has communicated to us, whether implicitly or explicitly, that here's the emotions that you can communicate and express, and here's all the emotions that you cannot. So, we engage in suppression. And my realization at 40 was suppressing an emotion is not like taking a scalpel and cutting that one emotion out. Suppressing an emotion is like taking Gallagher's hammer and just creating all kinds of collateral damage. And what ends up happening is, for me, I found myself just being flat or pissed off. And so when I became more open to heart centered practices and expressing love in ways that I never had before, allowing love in ways that I had never allowed before. Um, I feel the full palette of emotions now, and it's made me more effective at everything that I do rather than less effective, and it's made life more fulfilling, which is something that I don't think I understand. Yes, I cry at concerts, right? And in fact, I cried listening to a podcast the other day because I thought the conversation was beautiful. It was like music, right? And that's why I have these conversations. Some people will watch, but we're not going to have millions of people watching this. But what I found is that the reason I do this is because having a good conversation with another human is like being in a band and music just coming together and the music band, right?
Yeah.
And I get emotional about it. I'm
Yeah.
emotional now, right? Because I
Yeah.
just find that stuff. But I
Yeah.
allow full landscape of emotion now, and my life is so much better because of it.
Yeah, I mean, humans are so unique in the animal kingdom because we have these beautiful emotions, and to experience them in the full way gives us the full human experience.
Mm.
I love to teach people that emotion is a conscious language for energy that's in motion.
I love
So
that. Yeah.
I'm, I'm allowing, and I get chills talking about it and feeling it because I'm allowing this energy of life force or God or nature to flow through me as opposed to stifling it. And then I become a part of the river. I'm not just trying to stay out of the water and stay dry. Like I submerge myself, I submit to life, and I'm feeling it. It's helpful for guys too to hear that analogy because hey, I'm experiencing anger. I am not angry.
Beautiful. Yes. I love that.
I'm experiencing sadness. I'm not sadness because they'll identify with that emotion. I'm depressed. I'm worthless. I'm nobody. I'm no good. I'm down to the dumps. You're feeling that way. It's an emotion. It's a feeling that's in motion. If you allow it to flow, you recognize it. You don't resist it. It'll flow. But we're holding on to this idea. We end up struggling with it, and it becomes a freaking diagnosis,
hmm
unfortunately. So it's just giving people another tool, another language to help with that.
I always forget. I always mess this quote up, but it comes down to emotions and the way that we talk about emotions, just like you just mentioned, where people will identify with them. And they also identify emotions as uh, good or bad, right? Rather than
Yeah,
just
you're
simply
right.
signals in the body that the way I like to think about it is it's you're driving your car and one of the warning lights comes on, right?
Yeah.
It's a signal. And that signal means that pay attention to this, check into this, but sometimes that signal is a false alarm, right? And what ends up happening is if we identify with the signal, the emotion in the body, and it's actually a false alarm, but we identify with the emotion, then we magnify something that was not that big of a deal. And so it causes all kinds of problems when we identify with the emotions by saying, I'm blank, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated. So just that simple reframe of language plays a huge role in detaching from that emotion, not in a negative way, uh, but to be able to learn to manage that emotion in a way. I like to think of it like there is a right amount of emotion for every scenario. If I get really upset in a conversation and I hit the other person and all they said was, I don't like your shirt, right? That was not the right amount of emotion for that type of slight. It wasn't that big of a, right? So it's the right amount of emotion that is consistent with the situation that is going on, and then allowing yourself or having the skills to be able to metabolize that emotion and go into the next moment skillfully. Is there anything in all, does that resonate with you first and foremost? Is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I like that. When we claim what follows the words "I am" is very powerful.
Yeah.
And people, I'm big on conscious language. I have a conscious language coach, as a matter of fact. There's a book called Conscious Language by Robert Tennyson that I recommend to people all the time. It's not the greatest read, but it's very powerful and deep in its information about the power of the word. And so, yeah, if anything can help us, like you said, help healthily detach from that feeling and give us more agency, then I'm all for it. I am not depressed. I'm feeling depressed.
Yes.
Cool. And we can choose another feeling with awareness, or we can choose another feeling once we can sit with it.
hmm That's the hardest part for people to figure out. And sometimes I struggle with it too. What is the difference between recognizing that right now I'm having a challenge, I'm experiencing frustration or sadness, and um, I feel righteous in that because I identify with it, right? And I feel like the other person deserves a little something from me, but I'm holding it, I'm just damaging myself. But then we talk about we can choose in that moment to go with a different emotion. What is the difference between making that choice and suppression? Is it simply allowing yourself to acknowledge first and foremost, hey, I'm feeling this emotion. It's uncomfortable, but it's normal. Just acknowledging the whole thing. Hey, this sucks, right? My friend did something that hurts and it sucks, right? But part of what I said before, how long do we stay in that space? If you stay there forever, you're going to have a miserable life. What is the right amount? What is the right duration for that emotion before we choose something different? And how is that different from suppressing emotion when we make that choice for another emotion?
Yeah, I think it's a really good topic to address. I mean, it's kind of back to what we had mentioned earlier about creating life by default versus creating with intention and choice and agency, choosing what you'd like to feel. So, a lot of the good teachers that we've learned from over the years have shared this idea. It's like I allow myself to be upset for 30 seconds, for 90 seconds. The most I'll ever be upset is 5 minutes, though. And after 5 minutes, I've already moved on or I've
Yeah.
moved forward in some way. So yeah, having a time, I don't think there's a right answer. It's going to be dependent on you and where you are and what the situation is and what you need. But I love the idea of saying, hey, I can't be like this forever. I can't continue to be upset forever.
And
I
you have
can't,
agency in that, right?
right? This is so whenever we feel we have agency, we're able to experience a life that we want, right? Versus everything's happening to me all the time. What the fuck? You know those people?
Yeah.
There's two people in this world.
Yeah.
Everything's happening to me or everything's happening for me.
That's right. Yeah.
Who are you and who do you want to choose to be? And you can just practice that other one a little bit more until it becomes the default.
Love it. I think that's a great spot to stop. We went way over. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry that
Yeah.
we went over, but thank you so much. I'm just curious, real quick before we close, is there anything we didn't talk about that you would like to share last minute?
I think we could have another conversation for sure and probably fill that hour up and go over too. I mean, I really want you to know that I'm grateful for you and our time and who you are to me. You're one of my longer friends that I've had. I'll never forget the story that you took me to that meditation place in Houston.
Mm,
And that was one of my most memorable meditative experiences that was a catalyst for me. And I'm not sure if you know that story, but it is. And I wanted to make sure I
we went
told
to
you
the
that
temple, right?
we did. And they had that free lunch afterwards.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
So,
But
just real quick, I'm curious, what about that particular experience was so impactful to you?
well, I remember what the state that I was in, the ignorance and the naivete that I had, which was I need to find peace in my life to complete myself. Right. That was the mission that I was on at the time. Maybe there's some truth to that actually. But I was seeking meditation. I had thought that or heard that meditation was really it. I knew that it was ancient and I just wasn't doing it. So I was open to it. You had gotten into it and hey, said, let's go check this place out. So I remember sitting there and the monk rings the bell and that was it. And it was an hour long, if I remember
An
correctly.
hour.
And the ending bell was like at 5 minutes of. So 55 minutes in, they ring the bell. And I had just dropped in at that time. Like
Oh,
I spent 52 minutes up here,
yeah.
probably in lack of a better, maybe I was suffering in the back. I was suffering for 52 minutes. Like, what are we doing here? Antsy. And then I dropped in and I was like super galactic oneness.
Oh
It was
man.
amazing. It was so beautiful. I was like, oh my God, this is such a rush. It's such a good feeling. And
Yeah.
then she hits the ending bell, and I was like, wait, no, 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 I'm not ready to end this yet. Like, and then I remember like I got to get back to that. That was it. That began that gave me the taste, and I
Yeah.
wanted to chase that feeling. It's kind of like illicit drugs. Get me
I,
back.
I remember that trip vividly and so grateful for you going. And I couldn't be happier that it was such a positive catalyst for you. And
Yeah.
uh, I love you. And if you need anything, anytime, I know we're 4 hours apart now, but don't hesitate to reach out and let's go ahead and get something on the schedule to do this again. There's so much more.
I appreciate. Yeah, I agree. Likewise, my friend. Same thing. You can count on me for anything that I can provide and give you. I will be happy to do that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this work and sharing the word and being a stand for the beautiful conversations, the music of life. That's one of my favorite parts about you, bro.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Namaste.